Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mammals and cats, whoever you are. We're glad that you found us right here on the Sports Mix. My name is Brian Skowronski, and I got a couple of friends with me again tonight. Travis Berardi and Jake Furr of the Mansfield News Journal are going to drop some knowledge on you right here and now. Let's get right to it, boys. Lots of big accomplishments here in our area over the last week since we all sat right where we are right now and talked about it approximately a week ago. Who are your big three for this week? Travis, who stood out to you, the top performances?
Well, no surprise, my number one is Owen Fisher.
Come on.
I mean, anybody that goes for over 400 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns on the ground, and a punt return touchdown, I mean, he's probably up for State Player of the Week as well. Owen Fisher, my number one. Number two, I saw him personally calling the Ashland game on Friday. Ethan Hartley, he did it all. A touchdown passing, a touchdown receiving, and he had 15 carries for 162 yards and a touchdown. So he's my number two. And my number three, it's like a package deal like G-Man and Storm.
Okay.
Grant Barrett from Lucas and that Lucas offensive line. Ontario pretty much shuts down Owen Fisher. What was it, 64 yards rushing in their week 1 game. Barrett goes off 22 carries, 162 yards, 4 touchdowns, and the walk-off with 6 seconds left. So there's my top three.
You can't have one without the other, so I kind of like that you put them
that
together
offensive line, you know, he can't run without the offensive line. And I know they've said that even at Lucas. They're a team. It's just not one individual.
All right. What's Jake's take?
I'm going to go with some different sports here besides football. My number one it's pretty obvious. But number three, Shelby Grover from Lucas during a game against Danville, a win. She had 13 points, 13 kills, 18 digs, and 5 aces. So she's kind of an all-around player. She's legit. She's a sophomore. She's going to be one of the best volleyball players that we've seen in this area, and we've had some very, very good ones. By the end of her career, man, she's going to be pretty special. Then I have SADIE Smith from Shelby, who's a tennis player. Kind of a cool backstory on her. She didn't pick up a tennis racket until going into her freshman year, and she's a junior right now, and just picked up the game like crazy. And she's had some clutch wins as a number 2 singles. Against Marion Harding, she won a tiebreaker in the 3rd set to give them the victory, a 3-2 victory over Marion Harding, which puts them in prime position to compete for an MOAC title. And then yesterday against Lima Central Catholic, she won a 2-set marathon that gave them a win in that coaches tournament, like a team state tournament. So she's the real deal too. I mean, it's great to see those stories where kids are just trying new things and then they're excelling and succeeding. And picking that sport up right off. But number one is obviously Owen Fisher. I mean, he 14 carries, 412 yards, 7 total touchdowns. He had touchdown runs, I'll run them down, touchdown runs of 54, 67, 16, 60, 84, 67. So just on his touchdown runs alone, 348 yards, which broke that school record just in those carries alone. Now he owns it all by himself. So then go ahead and add a 49-yard punt return on. Why not?
Yeah.
Just to top it all off. So.
Definitely the icing on the cake for him on that punt return touchdown. All right, I got a couple of soccer players, both from the Madison Lady Rams, who over the weekend played in the Riverview Showcase. Nevaeh Lewis and Taylor Huff named co-MVPs for their performances. They each had a goal and a win over West Jaga, so I got them on my list, checking in at number 3. At number 2, I didn't do a but maybe I should, Travis. I think you just inspired me. Grant Barrett. 4 touchdowns against an Ontario defense that was pretty stout, as you mentioned, in week 1 against Shelby. And then he just goes absolutely bananas. But I like the walk-off touchdown with just 6 seconds left. The guts to even make that call, to not throw it when you're down there, because I don't think they had any more timeouts. They had to get it in from their 8-yard distance there. So Grant Barrett, big-time performer. And then at number 1, it's just too obvious. He probably is the state player of the week for week 2.
Has to be.
I haven't seen too many other performances, period, in doing this job for 10 plus years that are like the one that Owen Fisher just had. So I think pretty unanimous number 1 in our area. Though Whippet Nation, we got to call you out, Hungry Hounds. Where you at? On Friday Night Phenoms right now. I believe right now at this point he is number 2 is Owen Fisher, behind a kid who only had 2 touchdowns. So you had 5 more. That's a whole fistful right here. Whippets Nation needs to step up. I'm going to be disappointed if Owen is not our Friday Night Phenom. I normally don't play favorites. It just seems like I need to say something at this point in time. All right, what about the number 1 stunner for you guys from this last week? What really surprised you, either in a positive way or in a negative fashion?
I guess I'd have like an A and a B. On one side, the Lucas offensive line, just their rushing performance against 2 quality MOAC opponents, going down to Clear Fork and winning with their run game, and then beating a really good Ontario squad with that run game, who, like we said, really shut down Shelby's run game in week 1 at Shelby High School. And on the other side, well, it was Ontario.
Okay.
So I said both of that was just, it surprised me just how that game played out.
Jake?
My number one, we're going to stick with Ontario, but it's going to be with boys soccer. Earlier this week, they just beat Lima Shawnee, who is the number 4 ranked team in Division II, and they beat them 2-0. Aiden Frankhouse and Taylor Daniels had goals, with Logan Cost and Brody Conley with the assists, and then Gage Weaver had seven saves in goal to preserve the shutout. So that's a huge win. I know they've only played 3 games. They're 2-1. They lost to a really good Lexington team, but that win over Lima Shawnee is really going to propel them to a really good season. And like I said, 3 games. They've only scored 5 goals, but they're all by 5 different players. So I mean, that alone tells you they have a lot of talent, and I mean, everybody's kind of equal playing field here. So it'll be interesting to see what that can do when they come tournament time, because I mean, usually you only have maybe 2 or 3 guys you really have to focus on, but Ontario's got five different guys who have scored so far. So it'll be a big one tonight over at Ontario against Ashland. That's going to be a fun one because those 2 teams are really good.
They are a really intriguing team that I'm sure that Jesse Ryder is going to talk to me about here in just a moment. But for me, I was pretty stunned, to say the least, to see the Crestview Cougars in football go on the road at St. Paul, who again we always know is going to be good. But they got their doors blown off, 48-10. It was a running clock, and I think just with all the talent on that Cougar team and all the expectations, and as hyped up as they were all week last week, I was just pretty stunned, to say the least, that they laid a goose egg. They were in the game early, and then, man, St. Paul, I think, maybe showed that they're the class of the Firelands Conference. Yet again, surprise, surprise. All right, let's move on and talk about a little bit of volleyball, where we were diving into some of the schedules and looking at the results from around the area. And of course, we see them with our own eyeballs. MOAC is pretty loaded with some talent this year, and then also some other teams around the peripheral. But let's start with that MOAC, where I believe the Galleon Tigers got off to an 0-3 start to their season. Since they got into conference play, 5 straight W's for them. Jake, the Tigers look unstoppable right now.
They're legit right now. I mean, they front-loaded their schedule just because they've been in that Division II tournament or Division III tournament, and they want to make a longer run. So they front-loaded their schedule. Obviously, they saw where they were at, what they needed to work on, and then obviously they've worked on that because they've got into MOAC play and just kind of run the show there so far. But right behind them, man, is an undefeated Ontario team, which that showdown's tonight. That's going to be a good one. But yeah, Ontario's legit. I think tonight will really tell where both of those teams are as far as how they're going to move on for the rest of the season. But yeah, Galleon is the real deal. Clear Fork started off so good,
sure,
to begin the season, and that was so promising because that program's been down a little bit. So, but I think they're on the rise. They got into the MOAC, kind of found like, okay, this is the level that we need to be at, and I think they'll get there eventually. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be it should be a sprint to the finish line, and I think it's going to be Galleon, Pleasant, and Ontario who's going to kind of win that race at the end.
Yeah, you mentioned the Lady Colts, who started the season at 3-0 since they've been into MOAC play, still looking for their first win. 3 straight losses for them. We'll see if they can right the ship. And Travis, a team that you're about to see tonight, the Northmore Lady Knights, 5-0. We've seen them earlier in the week. They're pretty good, man, and they got studs all around. Yeah,
we talked about it. They won a sectional championship last year, fell in the district semifinal, but the 2 games that I saw, they swept Mount Gilead, and then the game that we called, they swept East Knox. They're going to have it's going to be a fight tonight. They're taking on Cardington, who's 5-2, 2-1 in the conference. Cardington finished in the top 2, I believe, top 2 or 3 of the conference last year, bring back a lot. So this is going to be their first major test in conference, and if they can get by that, they're definitely going to be hands down one of the favorites in the conference.
And the team that I'm going to be seeing tonight, the Crestview Cougars, playing at home against South Central, a team that they should handle. And I'm excited to see Kennedy Goon in action again, one of the Max Preps watch list players preseason. So looking forward to seeing the Cougars maybe try to get their season back on the proper trajectory, where they also got smacked by St. Paul. 3-0 in a match that I think they were pumped up about, thinking, hey, we're going to be in the conference race, and then maybe came back to earth. So we'll see if they can get healthy again tonight against South Central. All right, speaking of healthy, I see Jesse Ryder sitting over here in the soccer locker. So I'm going to go join him, and then we'll bring it back here to the couch in just a few minutes. Let's send it over. Welcome inside of the soccer locker, where it is time to get brighter with Ryder. That's right, Jesse Ryder is back, and he has got some controversy to lay on you guys, but that's later. First, let's talk about just the big picture, what we've seen from area soccer, Jesse. The state rankings came out this week. We got quite a few squads on there.
Yeah, I think the area is well represented. Certainly Ashland has both the boys and girls right around the top 15. Lexington boys are in there. Madison girls #1. I mean, it's hard to beat that. So I think there's a lot of good representation for the area. I think this upcoming week is going to really prove who belongs where and kind of how numbers will continue to rise or fall based on a lot of big games this upcoming week.
All right, so speaking of rising and falling, let's just get right into the top 5, man. I'm excited for this. Let's begin with the girls, where you had an honorable mention last week, and that team, I believe, is moving up a spot actually into the top 5, right?
So I've cheated a little bit.
Okay,
I have a co-5. I have both the Crestview girls. We got to see them play Loudonville, and you know what? They can score some goals. They have some fun players, and they have the ability to score a lot of goals. So I have at number 5 both Crestview and Clear Fork. This is going to be a 1-week only special. Not going to happen again. Okay. We're going to find out Clear Fork plays Mansfield Christian this weekend. We're going to cover that game. We're going to be there. We're excited, but we're going to see where do all these teams really kind of fit in together. So number 5, Crestview Cougars. Only giving up 2 goals on the year, 6-1 right now. They're playing some nice soccer. Clear Fork had their game canceled, so I can't take them out because they didn't do anything bad, but they didn't play a game, so it's kind of one of those tough scenarios. So number 5, Crestview Cougars and the Clear Fork Colts. Number 4, Mansfield Christian Flames. 4-0 right now. They're winning the games. They're supposed to be winning. They're playing well. Abby Little's doing a great job. They're moving the ball. They're scoring the goals. I think for us, the big question is going to be Saturday when they match up against a bigger school, a bigger team, a team that's been a kind of a powerhouse in the area. How will they fend against in that kind of competition? They've done well against some of the smaller schools. They've done well in their conference. But when you play kind of that bigger school, a traditional, just a powerhouse even, how are they going to match up? And so that's our game Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun to cover that game. 2 great teams matching up against each other. Number 4, one of the number 5s. It's a 1-week only. We'll fix it next week. But that's what we're looking at. Number 3 right now is Ontario. Ontario is an interesting team because they've got some great results. Had a tough result over the weekend, lost 6-2 to a New Albany team who's good. They're not great, but I think Ontario, I think they're going to continue to get better. Right? The more they kind of figure out some of the key replacements from last year and how to use kind of their star players and get more touches on the ball, we're going to see this Ontario team continue to improve and get better and probably just continue climbing up a little bit. But I think when you have those young teams, every once in a while you have a game where you just kind of scratch your head out like, how did that happen? I think that might be that New Albany game of like, I would say if they play again, Ontario's probably got a good shot of winning, even though they gave up 6 goals, even though they lost by 4. I think Ontario's not going to let that happen again. Number 2, the Ashland Arrows. They are a terrific team. They play a difficult schedule and they're doing well. McKinley Mendenhall is a terrific player. Great game-winning goal against Lexington to beat them 1-0 in a big OCC matchup. Lots of good soccer in Ashland right now. I think the girls are playing well. They're continuing to improve. I think their coach he's saying they're not quite where they need to be yet, but they are making the right progress to get to where they need to be, and they're excited about that. A lot of good soccer from the Ashland girls team. Number one in the state, got to be number 1 for us. Madison Rams. They're getting better and better, and they were already really good. So this is a team that's going to be a lot of fun to keep watching because they've not hit that peak moment yet where they're playing their best soccer. I think they're trending in the right direction. They're a really good team. The exciting thing is they play the number 2 team in the state next Saturday. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But we're going to find out when you start matching up with some of those type of opponents, how do you fare against some of the best in the state? Right now they are the best in Division II. And so when you play the second best, we'll find out who really is the best. And that's a fun matchup. So the girls, a little bit of change there. Crestview creeping in a little bit. They have a good team. But I like there's some quality area girls soccer teams in our area right now.
So not a lot of change from last week's top 5 into this one, other than 6 teams, other than the 5 instead of the honorable mention.
Yeah.
So obviously Madison belongs at number 1. I don't think you're going to get any qualms from anybody out there. They're fantastic. Taylor Huff, arguably the best player in the state, and she's carrying them right now, along with Nevaeh Lewis, and actually just a ton of talent. Shouldn't even say that. They have a lot more than just those 2 players, but those are the ones that get all the headlines because they're scoring the goals right now. Both of them have 5. Kyla Spencer has been a really fun player for Ontario, 10 goals for her. That result, though, you're right. Losing by 4 goals is not something that I think that they are used to, so probably Larry Atkinson and his bunch are going to bounce back from that. And then we saw Crestfield last night, and I was pleased with what we saw. That they got a lot of girls doing some good things right now.
Yeah. I think for Ontario, I think one of the key things is, when you have a young team, sometimes you see game plans that are a little bit different. And I think New Albany's game plan was to be very physical, to limit the touches for Spencer, and to really just, if she's going to get the ball, it's going to hurt a little bit. And I don't know that it's necessarily like a dirty tactic, but they don't want it to be easy for her. And so when you're a young team, you may not have seen a lot of this physical, aggressive play where the goal is not necessarily to just win the ball, but to make sure you can't go forward with it. So I think lessons learned for Ontario in that game. I bet if they play again, it's a different result. Maybe even, it's a 4-goal difference. I bet it's closer, and I think Ontario would win if they were to match up again with New Albany.
So that's the ladies. Really no change in the top 5. It's time to drop some bombs on top of you, though. So get your Twitter machines out. Send me some ads to relay to Jesse. Where are we going this week with number 5?
So number 5, brand new team, maybe never before mentioned the OH Report, Mansfield Temple Christian.
Welcome.
Right? They are 5-1, brand new to the top 5. I don't think they've ever made one of our top 5 lists before, but they're playing some nice soccer right now. They've got some good results. They don't play a super difficult schedule, but listen, if you can keep winning games, I think this is a team that's going to win maybe 12, 13 games by the end of the year. And the way their schedule lines up, they're going to make a nice postseason run, and we'll have a chance for a state championship in their OSSCA, a little different than what the other teams are playing. But certainly it's a quality team, and they're getting the results, and they're playing well. And it could be, this could be a 13, 14 win season for them. So
wow.
Welcome to the top 5, Temple Christian. Glad to have you. Number 4, a bit of a drop off. They were number 1. After they beat Lexington, they had a couple tough losses. And it's still a quality team, but in order to stay in the top 5 and to stay at the top of the top 5, you got to keep winning. Yeah. So Ashland is number 4. I think it's still a good team. They're young. I think that Lexington moment was kind of the pinnacle they've been waiting for, and maybe a bit of a drop off after that. We talked about those highlight games. That may have been it for them, but they play a difficult schedule. So when you have one highlight game and then you play another state-ranked team, you play another, they have a loaded schedule. So some of those losses are going to be tough losses that you learn lessons from because they're so young. They're still a good team. It's not necessarily demotion, but you got to keep winning to stay at the top of the top 5. So Ashland's number 4. Number 3 is Ontario. I think Ontario, they've not played a ton of games yet. I think they're kind of the bulk of their schedule is going to happen the next 2 to 3 weeks, where they'll start playing some more soccer. I think they had a game get canceled. They have a good team. I'd like to see a matchup. The Ontario Clear Fork's going to be a fun one. Ontario Ashland, playing some of the big local teams where the top 5 just kind of plays itself out anyways. And so seeing how they do against some of those teams is going to be a good matchup. They beat Norwalk, who's a pretty good team. They lost to Lexington, but it's a team that I think is going to get better, and I think is going to compete in every game. So I'm excited to see where do they end up, because they have the ability to kind of keep rising up, climbing to that number 2 spot even. But Ontario for me is number 3. Number 2, undefeated Clear Fork Colts. And it's the same thing we said last week. Clear Fork is winning the games they're supposed to be winning. Right. And they're winning most of the time convincingly. Beat Upper Sandusky 4-0. Beat up on Mansfield, Washington. They're scoring goals. They're not giving up a lot of goals. They're doing all the right things. Our comment, though, is they've not played some of the tough teams in the area yet. They will, so we'll find out. They play Ontario in a little bit. They play Ashland. They'll play Lexington. And so we'll get to see where does this team really fall. Right now, they're doing everything right. They're winning the games they're supposed to be winning. They're playing good soccer. They're getting better every game. They're not giving up bad goals. So they're checking all those boxes. It's just competition right now, but that's coming. And so we'll get to see and be a part of that and watch in some of those games. Number 1, Lexington boys, I've got right back in there after a tough loss to Ashland. And I think it's one of those moments where you appreciate learning that lesson. You never like to lose, but you appreciate learning that lesson earlier in the season than later in the season. Sure. Sometimes when you learn those lessons, that can end your season and that's it because it's tournament time. So I think for Lexington, they realize everybody is out to get them right now. Everybody wants to beat Lex. Everybody wants a shot at the success that they had. And so every game, every time you approach the game, that has to be your mentality that this is the other team's biggest game of the season. What Lex has in front of them is someone who has got even a little more revenge. That's Bay.
Yeah.
They've got Bay coming up next Saturday, and certainly if there is a team that wants Lex, it's Bay Village. Lex knocked them out of the state tournament last year, and I would say an upset. And certainly that's going to be fresh on the minds of Bay, and they're going to see a little bit of probably that attitude of looking forward to this game. If anybody has this game against Lex circle on the calendar, it's going to be Bay. They're going to be excited to play each other.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have some coverage of that here on the OH Report for you. So if there's like a NASDAQ of the Jesse top 5, but clearly the stock down right now for the Arrows. At number 1, that was their peak in the first edition, and now dropping all the way down to number 4. And then moving into the top spot, the team that lost to Ashland,
Sure.
Lexington. So
Sure.
I'd say those are the two big switches. If you want to explain.
I think the moment is you got to keep winning. Great win for Ashland to beat Lexington. That is a marquee win for their season. I think you got to keep winning after that to kind of stay in the top 5, to stay top in the area. I think for Lexington, they won their next game, and they beat a good Findlay team, and that's a tough place to play. That's a tough team to play, and so they're winning their games that they should be winning still. Took a tough loss to Ashland, but it's a very talented Lexington team, and they won. After they lost to Ashland, they bounced back, they showed some resiliency, and so I think Lexington's headed in the right direction.
All right, well, welcome to the top 5, Crusaders, and welcome to the top of the stack, Lexington Minutemen. So those are the teams that we have, the top 5 for the boys and the girls. What about some of the primetime players, Jesse? Who are your pitch monsters for this week?
Absolutely. McKinley Mendenhall from Ashland, game winner against Lexington. And I love conference games. They're just so much fun to be a part of because, obviously when you play a local team, it builds a little bit into it. There's a little bit of a rivalry there. When you play a good team, it builds into it. But when you play a conference game where every game matters, the result matters, and it could dictate whether you come in first place or third place. And so I think conference games are huge, and the OCC is a fun girls soccer conference. There's a lot of quality teams in there. And so for Ashland to beat Lexington 1-0, good game, good battle, and McKinley Mendenhall getting the game-winning goal, that's huge. That's a primetime moment right there. My other one is the one we saw at Crestview, Mary Leeper. What a fun player to watch. She could put the ball into an attacking position from anywhere on the field. Whether she was 20 yards away, 30 yards away, 60 yards away, she got it. She knew where to put the ball. And all of a sudden, what looked seeming like nothing was going to happen, Crestview was in on the attack because she knew right where to play the ball. Was fun to watch. Now, great assist, but what I loved is she had a tremendous goal against Loudonville. First touch was terrific, brought it right in front of her, and then just the volley into the side net, just put the game away. Terrific goal. Fun player, primetime player, Mary Leeper from Crestview.
And great with both feet. That's what impressed me most, is that it didn't matter what side of the field she was on, where it came down to her. She could blast it just as good with the left or the right.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
I agree, certainly worthy of being a pitch monster. So there you have it, kids. Go ahead, get out on your Twitters, like I said, and send me some messages. Let me know where Jesse's right and where Jesse's wrong, and we'll have you back next week. Never wrong, huh?
Never. We'll find out. The games play themselves.
That's right. That's right. Actually, probably even more controversy after the teams start playing each other. Will the head-to-head matter versus the resume? That's sometimes a conversation that we'll have for another time. For now, let's go back over to the couch with Jake and Travis. All right, so I'm back over here with the fellas, and let's move on from the football and talk about the pigskin. We're going to do pick'ems this week, gentlemen. The games that you're going to see right here on the OH Report. We got 7 of them coming up on Friday night, and I want to know what you guys know about who's going to win, or at least what we think we know. Let's begin. Lexington at Mansfield. Travis, we will let you do your pick.
But Mansfield Senior, I believe they looked better in their game against DeSales, and I think they're going to finally get over the Schneid, and they're going to defeat Lexington. I think they're going to win by 2 touchdowns.
I like that pick as well. I think that first half against DeSales really showed us what the Tigers can do. And I think they're going to come out and put up a good defensive effort against a team that hasn't scored a touchdown yet this year. I don't know if it's going to be a shutout, but I think Lexington's going to be able to find some things, figure out a few things. But I got Mansfield Senior coming out on top of that.
Yeah, I think I do too. The Tigers, they only had like 5 starters back on both sides of the ball combined. So this is one of those teams that not having a preseason and those scrimmages really impacted them. The fact that they now have 2 under their belt, this is kind of like the season opener in some ways, if you really look at it that way. And I think if they're going to be ready for the challenge, especially at home at Arlen, I think they also win by a couple of touchdowns. I'm with Travis. Galleon, who's 1-1 at Clear Fork, still looking for their first win of the season.
I don't know if I should give a pick because I'm calling this game, but two years ago at the Colt Corral, there was 80, 90 points scored in the first half alone.
Yeah,
It was a huge
unbelievable.
shootout. I mean, both sides have playmakers. I know what you were talking on Jake's podcast earlier this week. Ted Rose only completed one pass.
At least last week he did.
At least last week only completed one pass. I mean, if they want to compete with Gallion, who has a bunch of playmakers coming back as well from their playoff squad, he's going to have to complete some passes to really open up that run game, because if he can't complete a pass, Gallion's just going to stack the box. So I will make a pick, and I'll say Gallion close, but if Ted Rowe can get the pass game going, Clearfork could possibly take that one.
I completely agree. I think Clearfork's got a little one-dimensional lately, but I still love that defense. I mean, they're not giving up a ton of points. They played Lucas right down to the wire, who's a very good offensive team. So I like that defense, and I think that defense is going to keep them in the game. But I do like Gallion's offense more than I like Clearfork's offense. So I'll roll with Gallion and Wilson Frank House at quarterback.
I'm totally with you for that reason right there. They got the senior quarterback. I just think they're a little bit more explosive. Clearfork has some weapons. They have some really speedy players, but they didn't get them out on the perimeter, at least in week 2 against River Valley. I'm looking for that to change against Gallion, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think Clearfork's actually going to fall to 0-3. Gallion coming to their place and getting the W. Western Reserve at 1-1, at Crestview at 1-1. Cougars looking to bounce back from last week.
You know what, and I think they will, because that's just got to be a bitter taste in their mouth. How long has it been since they beat St. Paul? St. Paul, I mean, they only put up like 2 scores against South Central in their first week game, and then having them just run all over Crestview. I think that they're gonna be chomping at the bit to get back out there, and I think they're gonna recover and get that win.
I like Crestview too. I think they're going to come back from they're not going to have that hangover from a loss, a key loss that might have just put them out of the Firelands Conference race. Western Reserve is the defending FC champs, but they just went into overtime with Mapleton, who's been down for a few years. So that's kind of interesting to see that whole aspect. But yeah, I like Crestview to come back out and kind of reestablish themselves and maybe put themselves back in the race. Hopefully someone can knock off St. Paul or Monroeville, and then they can kind of scoop in and make it a season.
I was at Crestview last night, and just hearing some of the coaches and the way they're talking to their players, they are not pleased right now over in Cougar country. So I would be stunned this week if they did not actually annihilate Western Reserve. I think the Cougars are going to win and going to win big. And you had mentioned the Mapleton game, that it took the Rough Riders overtime to get through. If you just want to look at a common opponent, I know this doesn't necessarily mean anything, but week 1, Crestview handled them pretty easily. Cardington at Northmore, pair of 1-1 teams.
Golden Knights bounced back from a tough game against East Knox. I mean, that was a battle. Game of the week, and as it should have been, it was just 2 great defensive battles. But I think, Max Lower, he'll get the run game going once again. He'll find the end zone a couple times. That Northmore defense will cause a couple more turnovers, and they'll get back on track.
I like Northmore as well. I think they came into the season, though it was East Knox and Northmore 1A, 1B as far as the race for the K-Mac. Cardington just pushed the reset button on their program again, and coming in 1-1, that's a pretty big deal for them right now with the new head coach and everything. But I like Northmore. I like that, just that style of play and just what they do down there. I mean, it's good stuff to see. So Northmore for sure.
And they got that shiny new turf. They're going to have the OH.Report Game of the Week in the building. Brian Harder on the call with Bruce Wyrick, so you know the Golden Knights are going to want to show out at home. I'm picking them big. Lucas at Pleasant. Cubs trying to go to 3-0. Do they, Travis?
Yes, I think they do. Just because what Owen Fisher did to that Pleasant defense last week, it just, going into that game, we thought that was going to be one of the best games in the area, that it was going to be tough. Fisher, we thought, would hopefully reach 100 yards. He did that ×4 though. And, just with that Cubs offensive line, they're going to wear down Pleasant's defensive line, I believe, and just let Barrett and company just run over them. I think Cubs win. I think they win by 2 scores.
I think this one's going to be really close. Just talking to Rob Mahaney last night, we kind of talked about that Pleasant game. He's like, Pleasant saw what we were able to do through the air against Ontario, so that's kind of how they formed their defense. So he was like, we're going to take what they give us. They kind of had the box wide open, so they let Fisher run up the middle. I don't think they're going to play Lucas that way. But I still like the Cubs. I'm a huge fan of Lucas down there right now, and I think this could put them in a driver's seat to be like, hey, let's see if we can get an MOAC championship unofficially, and and make a run. But beating 2 Division IV opponents and coming up against Division V, and now Lucas has 3 of their starters back after they had to sit out for making contact with a COVID positive player. And they're going to be pretty good, and they're going to be hungry to get back out there. Some of them are going to be fresh, so I like Lucas in this one too.
As much as I love the Cubs, I think going on the road 3 weeks in a row, hell, they're going to have to do it 6 weeks in a row here in the regular season, which is crazy. But that's what Lucas does. I just feel like this week, the Pleasant and the Spartans, they're going to figure something out. They're going to have to do something against the run game. I'm sure they've been preparing for it all week. If they're not, that's all Lucas does. Maybe watch some of the tape. So I think it's going to be a close game, but I like Pleasant to win at home and the Cubs suffering their first loss. It's just too hard to go on the road all the time and keep winning. But if any team can do it, it is the Lucas Cubs.
You're giving them bulletin board material. I mean, that worked last week with a certain
Hit it up, Scott.
commentators,
Let your team know Brian Skowronski doesn't believe in you in week 3, and then shove it down my throat on the Twitter. I'll be looking for that late Friday night. Looking forward to it, actually. Harding at 0-2, going on the road at Shelby, 2-0.
I mean, do you need to even ask? I think Fisher goes for at least 200 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. If he does less than that, I mean, you can call me out next week. But
that's a rough week
Shelby's
after what we just saw.
I'm giving him a little bit of a week off. But you know what I mean. You know what I mean. But yeah, Shelby will.
I like Harding's athleticism. They have speed all over the field, and they put together a really good first half against Pleasant. So if they can put together 4 quarters, I mean, it could be a lot closer than what we think. But Shelby's on pace for a special season. I don't see them losing at all this season. I just like the Whippets and all the weapons they have all the way around. I mean, if Fisher's getting shut down, Marshall Shepard's going to find Blaine Bowman or Cody Lance or whoever else is on the outside. They can, it's just going to be a special year for the Whippets. And I mean, I'll go ahead and call it. They're going to be 6-0 by the end of the year.
I tend to agree. I think Shelby's going to win, probably going to win big. Owen Fisher's a special back. They have weapons all over, just like Jake mentioned. And I think that they have the quarterback, too, to deliver it. They just didn't need it last week. Right. Marshall Shepard probably going to have a big game. They just didn't need him to, so I think Shelby's going to win very handily at home. All right, probably the game of the week in our area. We got Crawford at Winford. I saved this for last on purpose. 2-0 teams. What's going to give, fellas? Who's going to suffer their first loss?
You know what? Just because they haven't won so long, I think Crawford does it. And that puts them in the driver's seat to win the Morgan Cup.
This was one of my favorite rivalries when I was covering sports over in Bucyrus 3-4 years ago. But just whenever those 2 teams get together, man, it's always Crawford County against Crawford County. It's always such a fun matchup. But Winford's on a 7-game winning streak against these guys.
Right.
Have them at home. So in one of my pick'ems, I picked Winford to win, and the second one I picked Crawford. So this is kind of the rubber match here.
What's it going to be?
I'll go with Winford. I think they're going to win a really, really close one, really tight battle, and it's going to come down to the final seconds, whoever has the ball last.
Like it did 2 years ago.
Like it did 2 years ago. I think that's how it's going to end up.
I just feel like it's got to be bubbling up inside of these Eagles. Like you mentioned, nobody on their roster has ever beat Winford. The coaching staff hasn't got a dub over them. And how long did you say?
7 years.
7 years. Something's got to give on Friday night, and I think what's going to give is Winford suffering a loss, which doesn't happen very often in Northern 10 play. Almost never, actually. But I think this is going to be the year of the Eagles. I think they're going to soar to a victory on the road. Just Cade Hamilton just looks like he's a different style of athlete this year. The Tristan Cross kid, that's a 1-2 punch that I think any team in the conference is going to have trouble with. So that's why I'm going with the Eagles on Friday night. All right, gentlemen, that's all the picks that I have for high school, but we're going to do one last prediction right here and now. With the NFL starting today, thank God that football and the big picture is like totally back now, minus the Buckeyes, but it's a different story. Let's go ahead, just give me your quick Super Bowl predictions, Travis. Who's going to get there? Who's going to win?
Yes, I'm going to be a homer, but the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl this year. Ben Roethlisberger is back.
Yikes.
He's healthy. He had a year. They're going to beat the Browns twice, so I can just put it on all you people. Come at me on Twitter, all that stuff, Browns fans. I have the Steelers this year. They're going to beat the Saints. I think the Saints are going to defeat Tampa Bay in the divisional. They're going to win the division over Tampa, and then they're just going to roll on into the Super Bowl and then lose to the Steelers. So there you go.
Tommy Terrific, not in a Super Bowl, just doesn't seem possible. Jake?
There's no way the Steelers are going to win. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I think Roethlisberger will get injured in the second game of the season.
That's what you Browns fans talk about all the time.
I definitely won't say the Browns just because I don't want to put that expectation. I don't want to be that guy who said this year is our year. But I do think they're going to have a better year than they did last year. I mean, it can't have much worse. But I'm going to go with Kansas City to repeat this year. I like Kansas City, and they're locking up all their players for long-term deals. It's got to be Kansas City. They have the best player in the league right now, and one of the best defenses. So, yeah, Kansas City.
All right, I'm going to start with my NFC pick first, and normally it just makes me itch a little bit when I talk about them, but the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, I feel like it's going to come together for them. They got all their healthy studs on the offensive line back, Zeke carrying the rock, Dak Prescott getting some change in his pocket this year. So I like Dallas and America's team to get there. And on the other side, how about the mistake on the lake? I will put that juju on them, Ricky Bobby. How about the Browns finally coming out of their shell and getting through the playoffs? We haven't been there in so long that they won't even know what to do when they get there, or will they? Yeah, Baker Mayfield's going to show out this season. He's going to get all the way to the big game, and the Browns are going to get it done.
Wow.
For the state of Ohio. 2020, baby. If there was ever going to be a year that the Cleveland
true.
Browns were
This
going to
is
get
true,
it done,
yeah.
That's it.
how about this season? It just seems like it's a destiny meant to be.
I like it.
All right, I want to thank all of the guests, Jesse Ryder, Jake Furr from the Mansfield News Journal. Make sure that you follow him all season long. He does the best coverage for high school athletes in this area, period. If you want to look at the big picture, always a big proponent of them. So thank you, Jake. And Travis Berardi, one of our OH reporters. You can catch him on a broadcast pretty much any day of the week right now. We're always kind of locked and loaded with the live streams, or at least at a game. So that's it for the Sports Mix tonight. We'll see you right back here Thursday next week. Till then.